everyone, good evening. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the film screening of Architecture of Infinity. And we're super happy to have the film director here. Please, round of applause. Joining us all the way from Zurich. We're very happy to have you here in Cairo. This is not your first visit to Cairo. And you actually have a very interesting photo to show and share the story of. But first, I just want to thank the Swiss Embassy for hosting Christoph Schaub here in Cairo, Egypt, and for allowing us, helping us to screen this beautiful film. Very philosophical. There are a lot of questions. I know that someone here in the audience has a lot of questions for you, and I'm sure many more. So, maybe we can show the first slide. Who's here? Oh, okay, here. So before we get to the film Architecture of Infinity, there's a very interesting photo that you showed me when we first started talking, back I think in August of last year. And you told me that your first time in Cairo was in 1992, when I was born. Disclaimer. And it was, you visited Cairo International Film Festival. That was your first visit. And this photo was taken by Van Leo, who is a very famous Armenian photographer who was raised here in Egypt. And I'm very jealous that you got to meet him and he took a photo of you. Can you tell us about this? Because I think this would be a very nice icebreaker before we get into discussion about the film.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really a big pleasure to be here and presenting, has the possibility to present the movie here. To this photo, I mean, it was indeed 92. I was 34, and I was presenting a fiction film in the International Film Festival of Cairo, and somebody, I don't remember really who, asked me to, or gave me the possibility to visit the studio of Van Leo, and then he asked me if I want to be photographed by him or a picture made by him. And I said yes. I had to run for a tie, and he wanted to make it with a tie. Without a tie, it's impossible. And so I did it, and I realized that's a big chance to be really beautiful for my whole life, because he asked me to make my lines away already at 34, and that's the result, and I'm really happy to have this photo.
Yeah.
And it's hanging on my sleeping room, so like a mirror.
Oh, that's lovely. Do you want to tell us all? Here we see his signature. So for those who don't know Van Leo, there's an exhibition of him, and which you can see in Tahrir Cultural Center, where we hosted our opening night. So obviously Van Leo has an amazing archive of celebrities, photos, and many intellects, I would say. So it's amazing that you're part of that exciting collection.
I'm looking for myself. I was looking for myself in the exhibition, but I didn't find myself. I was a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, let's talk about Architecture of Infinity. It's a very philosophical film on sacred spaces, and I would say it's not really about the physicality of these spaces, but rather the mental state one would experience in these spaces. How did the name, how did you come about the title of the film, Infinity? Because it doesn't allude to the space, because the space is not infinite. It has its own limits, right? So that's why I feel like it echoes the mental state. On the other hand.
Yeah, that's right. The title was the beginning of the project, and so I had really to work to find a way how I can tell the sense
so
of.
You came up with the
title
first?
Yes,
Wow,
but that's what the idea to make. Because it's paradox, it's contradiction. You can't construct a space of infinity or an architecture of infinity, but that helps me to find the solution with this philosophical approach about it's a question of an inner space, that you have an inner space that is endless or infinite, and has no center. You choose your center every day, every minute, and that's the outcome of this film. But that was I found it during the montage of the film, during the editing of the montage and the editing of the film, and I'm very grateful, thankful that I had this strange idea of this title, because it's Peter Merkle with his citation of this priest of the 15th century gave me the keyword. It's this, the center is everywhere and the boundary is, there is no boundary, and it's very this sentence is very political at the same time.
If we take a few steps back, what made you make a film on religious architecture, on sacred spaces? Do you consider yourself religious? Do you consider yourself religious? Is this something that you're interested in, that you wanted to explore through film? It's a very specific genre, I would say.
No, I'm not anymore Christian. I grew up in a Christian family, but not very religious. But I had a religion formation. But no, that was not the interest. My interest was to find a way to tell the relationship between emotion and architecture, because we discuss. That's not my first film about architecture. I did quite a lot, numbers of architecture movies about architecture, about architects, and so I had the idea that I wanted to make a film about this relationship, emotion and architecture, and not the technical aspect or the references in the history or something, and so that's sacred buildings, churches, or also as profane sacred buildings or spaces has the need, or they must be transfer emotion. They must tell emotion. That's the core idea of a church. I mean, and I told it in the film. I tell it in the film. I'm always interested in churches, also in mosques, and so that was the way of finding this issue of this film.
Another thing that I found very interesting in the film is the relationship or the similarity between music and architecture. I think this is something that is touched on in the film. I've never really thought about it, that there could actually be these two different forms of arts, I would say, have something in common. And they mentioned here, like, the architect is the architect of space, while musician is an architect of time. I found that very interesting. I learned that by heart to make sure that I say it now. And the commonality would be proportions and rhythm. Is this something that you wanted to tackle? Because there is a drummer that came in the film, and what was the idea of having that introduced, or that intervention within the space?
Filmmaking is always a journey, and you discover things, and that's musicians.
Yeah.
His name is. Huh?
Jojo Mayer? The musician's name?
Yeah.
Jojo Mayer. Jojo Mayer. Like John Mayer, but Jojo.
No.
Jojo Mayer?
I'm too nervous.
You're doing amazing.
Came back. We come back. He told about this relation between music and architecture, and I know a little bit. That's not new. That was not new, but I think it's a really inspiring aspect of the whole thing. Also, the church was built not only for praying or the rituals, only for as well for music. To play music in the Middle Age or later, and it's for that reason music was for me very important, and this percussion music, make a space. It's three-dimensional music in a way, and for that reason it's not very sacred music, or not at all sacred music, but it's music which construct the space in a different way.
Does anyone have any questions for Christoph? No? Go ahead. Ahmed Safin, تفضل.
Can I have the mic?
Hi, Christoph. Okay, first of all, I really want to thank you for this amazing movie. Like, it really touched me in so many ways. Actually, my question. Actually, I have two questions. The first question has to do with music. I mean, like, throughout the whole movie, as you were saying, this kind of percussive music, it has all the space between each beat and between each tempos that are going up and down. And I just want to know, like, what came first while doing the movie? Was it an exploration of the sounds while doing the filming, or was it the filming that took place and both of them were working together, kind of? Because I felt like the whole movie was very homogeneous in all its layers, like whether it may be the types of architecture that we saw, or the scenes in terms of photography or scenography, or in terms of music also. I think it's very homogeneous. So I just want to know this kind of, because again, this is architecture of infinity, so I really felt it through the whole movie, like in every scene, kind of. So I really want to know, like, the process itself, like how did it go? Like, did it come first? Did it come afterwards? Like, yeah, that's the first question.
Okay. I tried to answer. In the meantime, I remember the name of the musician, Jojo Mayer.
Yeah.
And he's quite famous as a drummer in New York.
Yeah, okay.
But he's a Swiss guy, and but I talked to him before we were shooting, but he began with the work concretely, really. That was during the editing.
Okay.
And there's two kinds of music, this percussion and the other music which is lying in the space a little bit, techno-y a little bit, and that's his band, his music, which is he's quite successful with his music, and that's the two aspects which are important in my mind. That's the transcendental music. You can fly, you can flow in the space, and then the architecture. And both are modern music. You're right. Also the kind of filming, this old churches, and but that was I wanted to be modern in a theme, in an issue which is not very modern. It's not up to date. Everybody, it's not so in the discussion in the society, and that was the challenge in doing this film. But the music was really important. Normally you take, if you make a film about architecture, you take classical music and piano, or yes, a little bit boring, but it works very well on the images, on the picture images in the narration, and so. But I wanted to do something different. And I had this idea of the percussion already several times, but I didn't make it, and so it was a good occasion for me.
I think he aced the music. Like Jojo, he really did a really good job with the music. Like,
yeah, it's very good. It's very good.
Yeah, by the way, I noticed that you appeared in some parts of the film, and this is the second time I watched the film, and I just realized this time that you. And how did you select the architects that you've interviewed in the film? Was there like a strategy behind your selection? You interviewed architects like Peter Zomther, Ram Koolhaas. So, what was the strategy behind that? Just like a follow-up question to that. Do you have a background in architecture? Because it is a field that it's a discipline, right? So can you tell us also more about your background? Because as film I design, we are trying to create this bridge between design, architecture, and urbanism, and filmmaking. So it would be interesting to hear your perspective on this subject from a filmmaking perspective.
First question was.
Actually, I have the same question.
The strategy.
I'm not a very good moderator.
No, and the strategy of the choice how I have chosen the architects, and that's absolutely the strategy was to be personal. That's I took the architects I like, and the buildings, the churches, or whatever, the art. It's my personal priority in terms of sacred architecture, of course. It has to be a relationship to the issue of the film, but I know personally Peter Zumthor and Peter Merkli, and the others not. But it was always the thought that it must be work like this, that this 6 person can spend an evening together, drinking a glass of red wine, eating very good food, and have a nice chat, nice discussion together, and they respect and like each other. That was a little bit, that was the idea also, to have a strategy to find the way. And they know each other. They don't know each other. But I asked them, and they said, "Oh, I would like to have dinner with Caesar or Zumthor. I like him, and I like his architecture, and so." It's very personal, because the interest in these architects is also personal. It's my personal interest, not even in terms of architecture, in terms of their relationship to sacred spaces. And they was astonished after seeing the film. I thought it's a film about about my architecture. It's a film about my relationship to sacred spaces. It's a film about you. You made a film about you. But it was really nice reaction. They liked it very much, the film, and so it was a gift. Yeah, this reaction for me. The second
question is your perspective on
no, I'm not architect. I'm not religious. I'm not an architect. I'm a filmmaker, and I have ever been a filmmaker since I'm 20 years old, and but I had a very good friend, architect, and we lived together, and he said to me, he came back from an excursion, architecture excursion, said, you have to make a film about this house, Il Girasole. That was my first film, about the house, which girasole means in sunflower, which can turn 360 degrees, and this very extraordinary building, a mixture of different styles, and ein Gesamtkunstwerk, and really architecture as a piece of art. And I said to him, no, I can't, I'm not architect, and so I said, okay, let's do it together. You are the architect, I'm the filmmaker. And that was a wonderful collaboration, and gave a wonderful film, and that was the beginning of this journey in terms of film about architecture.
Wow. And have you felt that your style in filmmaking has evolved or changed over the years? I guess yes. So the question would be, how do you feel has evolved?
How? Okay, has changed, but you know, each film I wanted to find an own approach. I mean, I did a film about the village in terms of architecture. I make a film about Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. I make a film about Santiago Calatrava. That's an engineer architect which made a lot of bridges, and I made a film about different films, but it's also always a very different interest. And this film, this was really the question of emotion, and for that reason, it has changed a lot. In this, each film is different in the kind of interest, and I think for me that's important and necessary to survive in a long life. In life as a film director, that you have always to change your angle and to find a new door to find to the reality.
We watched earlier today a film Mario Botta, and the genre was kind of similar, also tapping into religious architecture. But I feel like that film was more about the physicality of religious architecture, while here we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about emotions, or at least that's how I felt about these two films. And we actually have Walid Arafa, who was the speaker following the film Mario Botta. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on these films.
Thank you very much. I was stunned by the first movie, by the first film, but I prefer this one more, not just because you're sitting here, but because I prefer cinema or movies that make me question more than hand me answers. I understand why the movie about Mario Botta feels they're incomparable, really. But my question might not be architectural as much as it or not architectural in the conventional sense. But all through the movie, I've heard more than one architect. First Zumthor, and then Merkley, and then also maybe Caesar said the same. They all said they repeated the word soothing or comforting. So, I mean, a lot of people would think these successful architects, superstars from the global north, first world, not so many problems. What is discomforting them that they're looking for comfort? And I'd like your perspective, since you've had a first-hand experience over dining and wining together, and you're friends with some of them. What is it that possibly would agonize these incredible figures?
Yeah, you're right. That's really like this. They talk about consolation, but I asked them this this question. That I was really curious to hear what is the. I wanted to have them as emotional human beings, not as architects. And so I asked them about their childhood, about the experience in a religion terms. And Zumthor is almost crying in this church where he was as a young boy, and I didn't, that was not a plan to make him crying, but I think it's the way of asking them, and that's a really, architecture, buildings, spaces are very, very important. The aspect of consolation is important. That it's protection, it's a home, and that's important criteria. I think also for a flat or for any. You said in the talk after the film that in every good, more or less you said this, in every good architecture there is something divine. And that's another word for conforming, what's the word? Consolation. Consolation. And yes, I think a good architecture is searching for this moment, and they know this. They are good architects. They did a lot of buildings like this, or spaces, Zumthor the most probably, but also Caesar and Turrell in another way, and so it's really, and that's the film are searching this moment of this issue. I don't know if this is a good answer.
I think it was the one who sat in church he grew up in. He does say that it's not really questioned, but he does say that it's a space that does represent comfort and safety, and he wished that it had been so for him. So that stuck with me. So obviously he had a lack of that in his young life. So maybe he was always seeking.
Everybody has a lack of them. No, really.
Yeah.
That's. I think everybody has a lack of this,
Yeah.
and one of the challenging in life is to overcome this lack or another lack,
Yeah.
and but this kind of feeling nearby to somebody, or to feel yourself in a good way, and so that's a struggle to becoming adult.
Yeah.
And a mature human being.
And it's the human condition, no matter where you're from.
Yeah,
I think
it's human condition.
it's universal.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments, reflections to share? Ahmed? I can tell.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think you said most of the things. I just want to say.
You got to ask the
forced.
question now. You got to say something. He handed you.
Okay,
the
no, I, like for me, like following up on what they were saying,
Yeah.
I think that's why there was a lot of focus and some of the scenes on always bringing the children playing in the playground, because this is actually, yeah, one of the modes of infinity. It's like you're just playing, you don't worry, and I think he said it at the end of the movie. It's like, especially there was like a beautiful scene where it was like everything was so still, and all the kids were just like putting the sand and like silting the, and it, yeah, it's I just love all this kind of yeah, the whole movie all seemed like one big infinity, if you would call, like really, it was amazing. So no, I don't have any questions. It's just like admiration and reflections, I guess. Thank you.
And I mean, the cinematography was just, the picture was just amazing. The cinematography was beautiful,
It was
stunning.
It was crazy. Yeah. Here we go.
I'd like to ask if you had any problems filming in any of these spaces. Was there a moment when you found a space that didn't make the cut because you couldn't film it in certain ways, or did you have any problems when it came to filming the architecture?
Problems too?
Filming the architecture itself when in the space.
That's a big issue. Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge,
Yeah.
because architecture is three-dimensional and film is two-dimensional, and so you have to work to find a way of representing architecture. And I think you have to find a very personal, emotional approach, and you can't represent or telling the reality, and you have to use a lot of things which can help to find a certain dimension. I mean, musically, light, I don't know, figures in the spaces, and yeah, but I don't know if I achieved, but it's the challenge of doing architecture film, is to show the space in a interesting way. But I didn't. I mean, it's all yet every day or in the editing. Every moment is difficult, or it's maybe you fail. I mean, you think we have failed, or
No.
She's
You can
an
say
architect,
it.
so she just.
No.
I think you did a great job,
Yeah,
because
amazing.
you took us beyond people sometimes, especially today when we're looking at architecture in magazines or on websites on our devices. It's more about the image, and architecture is not about the image. Image is one of the tools, but it's about the state of being, or your state of your actual. I don't like to use a state of mind, more the inner intellect, the intellect of the heart, even emotion, because emotion, I wouldn't use the word emotion because it's still, it's on the psychological level. I believe in the spirit, and I think that this, the spiritual state of the human being in a given space is the ultimate goal of architecture. It is the architecture of infinity. It's how a certain space makes you reflect introspectively there's a beautiful verse in Arabic attributed to one of the very famous companions of the Prophet, Ali ibn Abi Talib, who says, وَتَحْسَبُ أَنَّكَ, I will translate, وَتَحْسَبُ أَنَّكَ جَرْمٌ صَغِيرٌ وَفِيكَ انطوى العالم الأكبر. Man, he's talking about humans, that they think they are just a small entity, but in reality, the architecture of infinity is within. So I think you did this very beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. But yeah, you give me the idea to say that you have to find little. You can't show just a piece of architecture. You have to find stories, little stories. I say it in emotional stories. I mean, if you need to show something which takes place in the space or in the room, and that's for that reason. So you can understand architecture in a unique way. Not in every person has a different approach, but you show, as a filmmaker, you show one approach, but you have to show this approach, an important approach, which is for you important, and yes, and every filmmaker probably would have a different approach, a different story, little story.
I think we have room for one last question, one more question.
Nobody asked that, which.
Okay, go for it.
It's actually beyond the philosophical. It's something about the movie itself.
I want to know, did you decide before starting the movie to include Jojo, the drummer, inside the church, like the sequence where he was like sequencing on the concrete? That was extremely interesting. No. Was it pre-scripted, or was he just playing around and then he decided, oh, no, maybe we should add it? Yeah.
Musicians are like this.
Yeah.
We have no discipline, just
yeah,
ideas.
No,
it was scripted. I scripted for a church, a Baroque church, and not for this special space. And then I discussed with him, and then at the end, that was the idea, to make this in this strange museum, but made by Merkley, and this Josefsson, this art by Josefsson, and it's perfect. I mean, I like it very much. I like it very much. It's my favorite scene in the film. And, but he likes it as well very much. Oh yes. So, and it was forbidden to play on the sculptures. So, but he was respectful.
Okay. No, also as a viewer, like from the beginning of the movie, to me it was like, who the hell is making this music? And then suddenly I see him on the screen, like doing like this.
And he's a cool guy.
yeah. It's like, wow, that makes sense.
All right. Thank you so much, Christoph, for joining us and your amazing work.